My name is Jeff Rapkin, and today I'm going to give you a very quick and condensed explanation of Florida divorce law and how it works. People are always asking me, I'm thinking about getting a divorce, I don't know how it all works. If you have this question, this video is for you, but understand the rules and laws I give you here are generalizations. If you have unusual circumstances, lots of property to divide, and complicated issues, you should see a lawyer to get answers for specific questions. You should already be aware that for every rule of law, there are 10 exceptions, and for every one of those 10 exceptions, there are 10 more rules of law. I'm giving you the basics here, and you should know that if you make good money, if you have a house that's paid for, mostly paid for, cars, retirement accounts, assets, FloridaDocs.net probably isn't for you. You probably need a lawyer because chances are that there are enough issues that you should talk to a lawyer. People who do this themselves, get divorced themselves, a DIY doing the paperwork themselves when they have assets, money, retirement savings, stocks, usually end up making mistakes that really mess things up. Now for the rest of us in general, how does it all work? The best way to understand how Florida law views a marriage is to think of a marriage as you think of an entity, having a life of its own, in and of itself, like the marriage is a company, with the husband and wife being the primary shareholders and directors of that company. With that said, whatever the husband and wife do collectively is considered to be of the marriage, a product of the marriage business, the marriage company. Things that are of the marriage are considered to be marital. For example, if you get married and you buy a car, buy a television, furniture, those items, if you purchase them after you became married, are called marital property. Same thing with a house or anything else that was acquired during the time you're married. If you earn a paycheck, this money is from what's called marital labor. You didn't earn the money for yourself, you earned it for your marriage. Just like if you worked for a company and they gave you a car to drive, that company car isn't yours. If you purchase a car while you are married, it belongs to your marriage business, your marriage company, not you personally. And it doesn't matter whose name it's in, it belongs to the marriage. If you earn money for retirement while married, that money belongs to the marriage. The same idea works for debts. If a husband or a wife or a spouse of any kind runs up a credit card bill, it doesn't matter whose name is on that credit card. That debt belongs to the marriage. Even if someone got a student loan while married, it's still considered a debt of the marriage, no matter who it was for and what it was used for. Assets, debts, and liabilities that happen while you are married are of the marriage, belong to the marriage. They do not belong to the individual, and the marriage company is responsible for it. They don't call it a divorce case in Florida. They call it a dissolution of marriage. That sounds strikingly similar to a dissolution of a corporation because it is. Now with that said, there are some exceptions to the rule that things you obtain, things you get during the marriage belong to the marriage, such as inheritances, some other things. They're too complicated to go into here, but remember, I'm telling you, if you have further questions or your situation involves complicated issues, you should talk to a lawyer about your specific case. So what about that house, the car, and the collection of bobbleheads you and your spouse got while you were married? Those things are marital, and at a divorce, they are subject to something called an equitable distribution. That's legalese, fancy language. Equitable distribution just means a fair splitting of the stuff we got while we were married. The word equitable just means fair. There is a common myth that in Florida, no matter what it is, everything is split right down the middle 50-50. That may be where a judge starts, but make no mistake, fair doesn't always mean half. Take, for example, the case of John and Jane. Let's say John has $1, Jane has $1 million. They meet, and a month later they're getting married. And a month later they buy a house that's worth $1,001,001. Jane's $1,000,000 and John's $1 are used to buy that house. Then, not even 2 months later, they decide they hate each other, and someone files for divorce. Doesn't matter who. Is this a situation where John gets to say, we bought that house while we were married? It's one of the marriage, it's a property of the marriage. Haha, the house is worth $1,001,001, I get $500,000.50. No, that's not the case. That certainly wouldn't be fair distribution. It would not be equitable. In that case, the judge would probably say, nice try, John. You've been married for not even 2 months. You lose. Jane, take your $1 million. John, take your dollar. Go your separate ways. What if they stayed married for a long time? What if they put an addition to the house? They raised 3 kids in that house. They stayed together for 30 years. In that case, I bet the division of the house would be pretty close to 50-50. Can you see the difference? The judge has to determine what is marital, meaning obtained during the marriage. And then the judge will divide that. People always say, in Florida it's 50-50, and in most cases, many cases, that might be true. But that's not a rule of law. A judge may start out at 50-50, but that's not automatic. What about my grandmother's fancy dishes I've had my whole life, and I owned long before I even met my spouse? That's not marital, obviously, because I got it prior to marriage. The judge isn't going to address it because it was owned before the marriage, not of the marriage or produced by the marriage, and it is something called premarital, which is not subject to being divided. So does all this answer the question of how does divorce work? If you think of the marriage as a business, you owe a duty to your business. You are not supposed to cheat your business or steal from the business. So if you file for a divorce and you have a joint bank account, cleaning it out and going to Vegas is not going to benefit the marriage business. However, taking money from the joint checking to pay a mortgage, which is of the marriage, the car payment, jointly owned, and care for the marriage business in general items, those items, is perfectly legal. Sometimes people tell me, we've got money in savings, I want to take it. My answer is always the same, don't take all of it, take half. Usually a judge is not going to get mad at you if you take half. If you're entitled to more, you can argue that to a judge. Cleaning out an account and leaving your spouse with nothing or holding the bag is going to make a judge mad. They're probably going to penalize you for it. What about the kids? If you take the children and won't let your spouse have access, you're probably going to get penalized for that too. You have to try and make some kind of temporary arrangements. Just so you know, the kids are staying with me, and you can have 1 hour per week to see them. This is not going to work. It's going to make a judge not think too kindly on you, especially if the kids are the ones being punished and being deprived of contact with both their parents. If you're dissolving your marriage, remember to consider that it's like dissolving a business, with the property and debts being equitably, that is, fairly distributed between you and your spouse. If you take all the assets of the marriage and you throw money away and you're gambling, giving those marital assets away, you'll be responsible for them and responsible for compensating your marriage business partner, that is, your spouse. As it pertains to marital property, you have the same rights as the co-owner of your marital business. If any judge can construe your actions as fair, equitable, you're acting within your rights. Divorce is painful enough. I urge you to be honest and to be fair. Good luck.